And good morning, and welcome to the Falcons Podcast. We are live at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and we are live every morning on YouTube, youtube.com/Scott Kennedy, every Monday and Wednesday at 9 a.m. So if you're listening to us after the fact, and I know the podcast, the audio version has really started taking off, and you want to join us live, that's where you can find us. So welcome in, everybody. I am your host, Scott Kennedy. I am in Atlanta. My good friend over here is Nick Kendell. He is in Seattle, and we've been doing this for going on 3 years now and have a good time doing it. So, Nick, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. Looks like it's going to be really heating up over here pretty soon. We're unfortunately going from winter to summer in a blink of an eye. They're showing some 90-degree forecast coming up in next Sunday and Monday. So got to get that air conditioner set up, and hopefully it doesn't melt us too much. Most of the houses out here don't have AC, so when it gets hot, it gets really hot. So yeah, looking forward to it getting a little nicer. But man, I wish yesterday was beautiful. Sat out, read a book, set the dog down on a blanket, and just was outside for about 3 hours, just relaxing in the spring sun. So it was nice.
Yeah, on a 30-year house note, put an air conditioner in it. I don't care if it's 10 grand. 10 grand on a 30-year loan rolled into your mortgage is pennies on the dollar. Just get it, because you might not need it often, but by God, when you need it, you'll be glad you've got it.
Yeah.
You need air conditioning like that. So want to say good morning to some folks who've come in early in the chat, and then we'll hit some folks up as the chat kind of hits all the places out there in the internet verse. Michael Ranquillo over out in Arizona coming in nice and early. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast, and good morning to you as well. Alan says, good morning, guys. Beautiful morning in South Georgia. I was close to your neck of the woods this weekend, Alan. I was in Charleston Saturday afternoon and Monday morning, and it was pretty nice down there too. It was, mid 70s and partly cloudy, just gorgeous. Good to be back. Easy drive down to Charleston from Atlanta, one of the best cities in the United States. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. And Savannah, Charleston or Savannah, do one or do both. Victor coming in says, good morning, Scott and Nick. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Victor runs a Brazilian-based Falcons podcast, and I was with him last week, and he's going to cut it up. He says today it'll come out tonight, and I'll tag you on Twitter. So follow me, and then I'll retweet it, and you'll know where to find Victor for the Portuguese version. We'll do it in English on this one, though, because I don't speak much Portuguese. Roger Cook is back. Missed you last week. Says afternoon all. Glad to catch you live again after missing a week. And Mark Schrader coming in from Texas. He's my early weather man. Whatever happens there is usually here about 2-3 days later. So welcome in, Mark. Glad to have you. So the topic of the day is a topic that went pretty bonkers over the weekend. We had it on All Falcons, and Dave Holcomb wrote it up. allfalcons.com, but he's like, Colin Cowherd blasts the Falcons 2023 over/under win total, which is just 8.5 wins. But considering I think it was 4 last year, the over, if you look at it that way, you're like, okay, well, they've doubled. Vegas doubles what they think they were going to win last year, but they did win 7, and Nick, going into last year, they won 7 games in Arthur Smith's first year in 2021. And then in 2022, I said, and I think you agree with me, this team could be better, but could have less wins just because the schedule was a little harder. But they ended up with 7 wins again, and they were better. I think they were a considerably better team last year, even though they had the same amount of wins with 7. I think they overachieved some, probably only favored in 2. And now on paper, and this is what Colin Cowherd said. He says, the Atlanta Falcons at 8.5 wins is the strangest line I've ever seen. Hyperbole much? Desmond Ridder is their quarterback. Green Bay at 7.5 wins, also in a wonky division, also in the NFC, but at least that quarterback, Jordan Love, has been in a system for 3 years. Does he have as many passes as Desmond Ridder? Has he started 4 games?
I don't think he has.
And here's the thing. It's like, you're going to say something like that. We've got 4 games of Desmond Ridder. Is he the guy? He may well very be a career backup. Okay, so you're hedging on that. Might, ever seen. You don't know what you've got. So he had his record last year was 2-2. Was 500 on a 7-win team, on a 7-10 team. And they've poured a ton of resources into this team. This team looks considerably better than last year's 7-win team, Nick.
I mean, on paper, you're definitely correct on that. I mean, they've added a bunch of guys to the defense. That defensive line is significantly deeper, which has been an issue on that Falcons team for 2 years now. They should be much better on paper. You added a real difference maker in the last area of the defense in Jesse Bates. The massive amount of players you've drafted over the last couple seasons, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, should be that much better. And you added probably one of the most instant impact players in the entire NFL this offseason in Bijan Robinson to this offense that was already a juggernaut in terms of running the football. So on paper, I think the line that Vegas said is good. I don't think it's asinine at all. I think this is right where I would set it as well because of the question marks regarding Desmond Ridder. I think the comments about Desmond Ridder are not completely off base. And you know me, Scott, I am very much a seeing is believing person. And Desmond Ridder, 2-2 last season? I'm a guy who watched Drew Lock go, I think it was 4-1 to close out 2019. And then the wheels completely fell off the bus. I need a broader sample size against different opponents, teams that actually are scheming away the weaknesses and issues against that quarterback. Because eventually there's going to be a point where you can't just, hand it off. You're going to have to be a drop back passer and pick apart the defense in that kind of pass game. So that's a complete wait and see for me at this point in this structure of a team. But the 7.5, not asinine at all. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It's 8.5.
8.5.
Yeah, 8.5.
8.5. I don't think it's asinine either. That's about right.
I think that's a decent line. Yeah. So to say it's the strangest line I've ever seen because 8.5 wins is the easiest bet he'll ever make in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, put your money down. Let's see. Do it then. Put 100 grand. Put 100 grand on the under and see what you think about that. You can afford that. Mm-hmm. No, there are questions around Desmond Ridder, but he doesn't have to be. For this team to be a 9-win team, 9-8, which might get you in the playoffs in the NFC, might win you the division in the NFC South, he doesn't have to be spectacular. And the pieces around him, I think, are good enough that Arthur Smith's a good enough coach to scheme away the perceived weaknesses. And how weak could they be? We don't know for sure. I think with a full camp as the number one, 4 games under his belt, I think he can be an average NFL starter. Maybe a plus if you factor in what he can do in the RPOs, because the guy's a 4.5 40 guy. He was the fastest at the NFL Combine. Not Malik Willis. Malik Willis may be a little more of a shiftier runner, but the fastest guy at the Combine was Desmond Ridder. He's a hell of an athlete. So I feel like he might be the most disrespected player right now in the NFL. We like what the Falcons are doing, but Desmond. I mean, what has Desmond Ridder shown? I understand that he hasn't shown enough to be the guy yet where we're saying, okay, this is a reason why they're going to win games. But what has he shown in the opposite direction, Nick, that says that this team can't win with him? We hear questions. Okay, I have questions. That's fine. But why, if it's not a positive, is it automatically a negative?
I guess it just comes down to the draft status that he played himself into going in the third round. That's typically the best indicator of success or not. Obviously, once you get drafted, it's anything can happen. But historically, how many quarterbacks in the last decade that weren't first round picks went on to be plus starters? Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Derek Carr. I think we're over a decade now since Russell Wilson's been drafted, and then Jalen Hurts. So you have 4 out of how many quarterbacks have been drafted. Not a great overall sample size. So I think that's the biggest indicator, I guess, that we can go off of history. But
we're not talking about being a great quarterback. We're talking about even just not being the reason you're going to lose 12 games.
Yeah.
That's what it's boiling down to, Nick, is everybody's saying it doesn't matter what else the Falcons are doing because, Desmond Ridder, good Lord. And the thing is, in the same sentence, I always say, well, they don't know what they've got yet. Okay, so why is it automatically he can't play?
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't quite get it. Like I've said, they're fixated. A lot of people, who's the guy? Was it Router over at or Rosenthal maybe over at NFL.com? It was just I said fixated. All he can think is Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson, Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. You spend $250 million, get 6 new starters on defense, and you move down a spot because, well, you didn't get Lamar Jackson. Yeah. Good Lord.
Yeah.
And here's a decent question, but it is, and Roger Cook says, how many first rounders have failed, Nick? And a lot. And that's the thing about it, though, is the quarterbacks get elevated so much that if they can play at all, they're overdrafted to a couple of rounds. So once that draft was almost an aberration. Once they started falling, to have one guy go in the late 20s and Kenny Pickett, and then it was like, okay, well, we're not in any rush. Once we're out of the first round, we don't have to rush to take a quarterback. There's a lot of players at every position that have failed in the first round. That's why we like multiple shots.
Yeah. And for the first round failures, that's kind of I like to say as a stat head myself, a numerator is only as telling as its denominator. Obviously, if you go across, there's going to be a lot of first rounders who have failed, but the proportion of quarterbacks drafted in the first round that have failed compared to the rest of the draft, or even day two after that, is significant. So
it becomes expectations for me.
Yeah.
It's like how many of them, how many drafted after the first round even get a chance to start? Where they are going into the season where they've earned the right, where we're going to have this guy as our starter. Taylor Heineke can play ball.
Yep.
He is an average, maybe even a slightly below average quarterback. He's on this team.
Yep.
If I have him as my starter and we've never heard of Desmond Ridder, does this all of a sudden become the weirdest line we've ever seen at 8.5 wins? That's what I'm talking about, is why is it automatically a negative? What have we seen from Desmond Ridder that it's, oh my God, we cannot. I don't care if they've got the Ravens defense or the Tampa 2 that won a Super Bowl or the 85 Bears. It doesn't matter. They've got Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, man.
And you made a point I was going to make too. I think, like, let's say Desmond Ridder doesn't exist. What's this line at? 7.5. So I think Ridder, with it being at 8.5, is probably makes sense. I mean, we saw what the NFC East was pretty garbage prior to last season with that Commanders team, and Taylor Heineke kind of winning some games here and there. But I think, 8.5 is a good line, because that's one where I'm like, could I see 8 wins? Yes. Could I see 7 wins? Yes. Could I see 9 wins? Yes. Could I see 10 wins? I think that's 2 wins up and 2 wins down is about the range I'm expecting here.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's a fair line, which automatically means that calling it the strangest line ever and the easiest underbet in the history of the NFL and the entire league this year, that is a little odd.
Yes, I agree. And that's just, again, probably haven't watched the Falcons very much last season, knowing that the Falcons defense has been pretty damn dreadful over the last couple of years, especially getting pressure, and then having not a name at quarterback. I mean, especially when you're the national guy and you're having to talk equally about Formula One racing and the hockey playoffs and all this other crap going on. You're not sitting there watching every single Falcons game like we are. So, I mean, I have I like Cowherd still, even though he's sometimes a little sensationalist for the headlines and whatnot. But this is one where I'm just going to write it off as ignorance. He hasn't watched this team. He doesn't know exactly what moves they make.
It doesn't keep him from pretending that he has.
Yes.
Because his quote is, how in God's name with Desmond Ridder, I know the division is weak, can you be an 8.5 win team? Again, he may be a career backup. Teddy Bridgewater at his prime as a career backup, a spot starter, could come in and win 8 wins with this team. How in God's name with Desmond Ridder, I know the division is weak, can you be an 8.5 win team? Now, Atlanta has got one of the weaker schedules. I get it, but that doesn't historically matter when you have a C quarterback. Okay.
Called him a C quarterback, at least.
A C quarterback could win 9 games with his team.
Yeah. I guess there's a lot of projection still for the defense coming together. Yeah. Also, we have names on here, but Nielsen as the full-time defensive coordinator, a lot of different pieces in the defensive line. How do they all meld together?
Wretched last year because they had no bodies out there.
They should be better, but it's still projection a tad. So I'm just being a little bit of a devil's advocate here. I think that he's way over the top in what he said about this. But there's a reason that we're not, for sure AFC South bet winners or anything like that. 8.5 is a good number. I think the
line's okay.
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. I think the line's fine. I'm not blasting the line. And again, if you think it's the craziest line ever, put your house on it, man. Mm-hmm. Put your house on it. I've come across a few of these in my lifetime where I'm like, I would bet the house if I had one. 1993, 9-0 Auburn Tigers go to the 4-5 Georgia Bulldogs as a 1.5 underdog. Oh, the house, man. Put the house on it. I think Auburn beat them by 17. Bet the house. That is one that was weird. That one sticks in my line sticks in my mind. What was that? 30 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't something I'm going to be remembering. The 8.5. And Ryan Adonis says, what's the Vegas line? The Vegas over-under total for wins is 8.5 for the Atlanta Falcons. Nick and I both agree that's a fair line. I would probably. What would you do right now, Nick? And let's go through this. We know the division you're in. We know the opponents. Don't necessarily know the order until next week. The schedule comes out. Actually, this week. It comes out this week. The schedule comes out this week. Where we know the schedule. Playing in the NFC. What do you think of the 8.5 win total? What would you go on it?
Oh man, it's a perfect line for me because I think 8 and 9, 9 and 8 is right where they're going. I think I'm more of a believer in Arthur Smith than I am Desmond Ridder, and I think that with the offensive infrastructure they have in place on top of the schedule, that I might actually go over it. And I've definitely been coming off as a bit of a naysayer here, but I'd probably go slightly, like as Roderick Koch says here, naysayer, because I really do believe in what Arthur Smith's scheme is and this counter to a lot of what teams are doing right now. I mean, you're going to be a changeup or a slider when everybody's been going up against a fastball curve almost every single week. So I think that's something that I do like the over slightly, but it's a good line. I wouldn't touch it. It's not one that I sniff it and be like, oh my God, this is the worst line I've ever seen. This is one where it's like, flip a coin. I mean, I don't know.
I think it's a solid. I would say I might be biased. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. And typically I will hedge on the negative side as a lifelong Atlanta sports fan. I am a jaded SOB. Mm-hmm. They do that to you. That's why I said when people try and talk trash, I'm like, you can't talk trash to a Falcons fan. You cannot hurt me any more than they already have. I promise you, you cannot. I actually like the over on this. I think a 7-win team, and you mentioned I'm a big believer in Arthur Smith and what he's doing. Okay. Who does Arthur Smith? Who is he betting on? Desmond Ridder.
No, I mean himself too. But yeah, Desmond Ridder.
He's betting on Desmond Ridder. They've had a chance to go out. They could have traded up and gotten one of those quarterbacks. They could have made those moves. They could have done a lot of things. Instead, they said, we like what we've got in Desmond Ridder. We're going to get a competent backup quarterback who has started a lot in Taylor Heineke, pay him decent money. He's making more than Desmond Ridder, about 3 times more. But that's, you get some starts in the league and stick around for a while. You'll make your money. And Arthur Smith's betting on Desmond Ridder because I think the coaching staff and Terry Fontenot and the players did a fantastic job last year to win 7 games, just fantastic. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do with players who haven't been pulled off the Tennessee Titans and Chicago Bears scrap heap. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of them now. There's a lot of them. Go across the defense. David Onyemata in the middle. Caden Ellis right up the spine. We talked about the spine on the defense. Caden Ellis, David Onyemata, and Jesse Bates. Okay, good. Jeff Okudah, do you think he's going to be a better player this year? I think so, maybe. The offense should be better. Get healthy Kyle Pitts back with Desmond Ridder, Drake London, Tyler Algier, Cordell Patterson, and the offensive line is in good shape. Oh, and I fixed left guard. This is a team that should win 9 games. Let's say hello to at least 9 games. I would take the over on this one. Let's say hello to some folks now that the chat's opened up a little bit. It starts off, Facebook finds everybody a little late. So, we start off, we double our numbers by the time we hit 15 minutes in. So I want to say good morning to some folks like Joe Cannon. He says, great morning, Scott and Nick. Good morning to you as well. Appreciate you being here. And Joe, Chris Walker in early on Facebook as well. Heard that before, says, what's up? What's up to you? Let me see here. Andrew Newman. Feels like a newer name. He says, good morning, y'all. Good morning to you as well. Akey Dragon, Broncos fan, coming in and joining us. Appreciate you being here. And when I said the comment's a little odd, Andrew agrees. He is a little odd. Brian Bonner coming in. Also feels like a newer name. So most of these commentators only watch highlights of this team. And to be fair, there weren't a lot of highlight plays last year for the Atlanta Falcons. Let's see. How about Cordell Patterson breaking the NFL record for kickoff returns? It was a ground and pound type of team last year. Not a lot of fancy going through the air, but Ridder got better every start. I think he had like 175 yards passing his first two games.
Maybe the only game he watched was that Thursday night game in Carolina, and that one would make anybody think that
guess what?
not a good team.
Marcus Mariota played that game.
Yeah, I missed Joe Cannon's picture of Marcus Mariota throwing one from his
and
waist
Marcus
on the
Mariota
ground.
should have been benched after that game.
Yeah, he should have.
I don't think he quite was. I think coming out of that game, that should have been the end of Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
Jay Rupert here. Good morning, Jay. Says, I woke up early enough. Well, glad you're here, Jay. Appreciate you being here. And Kevin says, Taylor Heineke is the only quarterback in the league not named Patrick Mahomes to beat the Eagles when Jalen Hurts was in the game, and he's our backup. 8.5 wins is not unreasonable. No, it's not.
No.
Like I said, to call it the strangest line I've ever seen, the easiest money to be made in the entire NFL. How many of y'all are running to bet the under because Colin Cowherd said that? How many people are out there running to bet the under, period, because that's what Colin Cowherd said?
Not me. That's the line that I'm smashing right now, and this is maybe me being biased, but they said the Big Ten West, Iowa at 7.5, and Iowa won 8 games last year with the worst offense in the history of existence, and they brought in like 20 transfers on the offense. So, and they don't play Ohio State or Michigan next year. I'm betting the over on that Iowa.
Well, Ryan asks, he says, I'd bet 1,000 on it. What's the return on it if you win? Just under 1,000, because it's even, and Vegas will take their commission out of it. Ironically, Vegas doesn't want to gamble. You know, when a big upset happens or something, they say, oh, Vegas really cleaned up on this one. No. They move the line until money is equal on both sides. That way they win no matter what. They want their 5%. They don't want to gamble. That's the most ironic thing about Vegas. The odds are in favor of the house, and they're taking a piece of every piece of action. They want to be brokers. They are brokers, not gamblers in Vegas.
Yeah, those buildings and glitzy hotels and cocktail lounges weren't built on charity. That's for damn sure.
Ryan Adonis says the defensive line will be a lot better than last year. Let's start there, Nick. Let me see. Last year, a lot better. I think the second unit for sure. You know, which plays 35% of the snaps. You know, when I was a big fan of it's Amir Abdullah, right? I've already forgotten his name. Abdullah Anderson is who I'm thinking of. Abdullah Anderson. He came in he was cut by the Falcons, re-signed to the practice squad, moved up, played really well. Taquan Graham got hurt, I think, in the Bears game or the week before the Bears game. So he missed a good third of the season. He was really good. Grady Jarrett's really good. The edges were better, but not good. I think there's more there this year. But you had your choice of all of those guys, and then you've added to it. Eddie Goldman is coming out of retirement. There's a 300-pounder who is a competent pro. David Onyemata is a plus pro on the defensive line. Taquan Graham is back, and hopefully he comes back. And I don't even want to say continues the trajectory, because he went from D- to B. You know, he's not going to A++++. He's not to continue the trajectory that he was on in a straight line. He'd have to be Aaron Donald this year. So just slight improvements. Come back healthy.
Get healthy.
Play as well as you were playing last year. Maybe a little better.
Yeah, Calais Campbell also another name to toss out there. The unit will be better, and we saw with the Eagles last season. Did the Eagles have any true A+ players in the defensive line? Maybe Javon Hargrave was up there as well. Got paid like it, but really, what
Fletcher
made the
Cox,
Eagles?
They're pretty good.
He's fallen off a bit. He's still good, but he's not Fletcher Cox of 6 years ago. But I digress. What made that Eagles team?
Brandon Graham played. He was pretty good last year too.
He was fine. I think what really made that team special, though, was that they went 8 deep. The fact that they could rotate like they did, not have any drop off, just know their team had that depth. So that's a good point as well. We'll see about the cornerback room here with the Falcons as well. But I think that defensive line will be much better. I don't think they're going to be the, I don't want to say laughing stock, but the struggling team that struggles to get pressure stats on opposing passing games this upcoming season, like we saw the last 2.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they added a lot of the edge hasn't gotten a lot better, but you've got more good defensive linemen. And Onyemata and Caden Ellis, I think, both would have finished second on the team in sacks behind Grady Jarrett last year. It was like, I think Grady had 6, and Ellis might have beaten him, because for some reason I thought he had 6 or 7. I'll have to look it back up. And Onyemata had 5 or 6 right up the middle. Jesse Bates actually had some rushing the passer. Then you got Bud Dupree coming in. He can get to the passer a little bit. Again, a nice, competent pro. Is he immediately become, the second coming of Derek Thomas? No. But is he better than Ade Ogundeji, who probably saw the second most snaps at edge last year behind Lorenzo Carter? You just got better. If I can move Ogundeji down to 6th, maybe off because I've got 5 guys better, you're going to be better at edge just through the investments there. I want to say good morning to Gary Lees Palmer. Gary Palmer won the random generated drawing for his free jersey last night. So congratulations. Yeah, I thought Ellis had 7 sacks, and I thought Grady had 6. So I don't remember. That's what threw me off. It's like, I remember Ellis, but I didn't think anybody we brought in for the Falcons had more sacks than Grady Jarrett, but I thought Grady had just 6. So maybe so. But I want to say thank you to Gary for coming in with this the super chat. Appreciate you, Gary. He says good morning, Nick and Scott. And thank you for helping to support the show, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you.
Peace. Good to see you. We've got to get on out of here soon to cover the Broncos as well. But overall final thoughts on Colin Cowherd. I don't think I'm not going to take too much away from it again. He covers every team, and he's out there for the soundbite. He's out there to get as much as possible to get people inflammatory. That's, kind of his game out there covering the team. And I don't think it's the most crazy line we've ever seen at 8.5 for the Falcons. I wouldn't be touching it personally because, again, maybe I'm a little bit not biased. That's the wrong word, but I saw what happened with Drew Lock, and eventually it does.
That's a bias. It's okay. We're all biased.
Yep.
Yeah, you recognize your bias, and I remember, and it has warned me off of it. I think Ritter is already a better professional than Drew Lock, and I think the infrastructure around him. How many coaches have that was 3 years ago? Broncos have been through 3 coaches since then.
Yeah, and then also just talking about we had so much better on paper. Well, last season, I'm very even more seeing as believing after last year. Oh, the Broncos' bottom line is probably the playoffs with Russell Wilson. They end up getting the 5th overall pick in the draft.
Worst record in the NFL. Yeah,
God,
there was so much new last year, and there's a lot of new on defense.
Yeah,
but the defense wasn't good.
Yes,
so your Dean Pease was getting it done with duct tape, smoke, and mirrors last year. And he's like, sure, now you spend all that money on defensive players. We're going to get out of here. I want to say hello to my friend Barney Young. I haven't seen Barney in way, way too long. I hope you are doing well down. If you're still living Southside, Barney and I go back we probably don't want to say how old that is. I don't want to give you away, but Barney and I go way back to when I was breaking into recruiting way back when. And a really good dude. Good to see you, Barney. Hope things are going well. But we are going to hop on out of here. We will be back Wednesday morning, same channel. Same channels, 9 a.m. We're going to talk a little bit more Desmond Ritter on a national scale. There's some things going around. I've also got some nice draft reactions I've seen where NFL personnel love the Bijan Robinson pick. NFL draft analysts say it's almost indefensible. So I'm looking forward to talking about that one on Wednesday. And we will be back Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., same place, same time. If you want to join us over at Mile High Huddle for a little more football talk, we're headed over there right now. Otherwise, we'll see you Wednesday morning. Thanks for being here, everybody, and hope you have a great week.
Peace.